Okay, so again, welcome to Dating in these Streets with the Last Supper series. I'm so excited to have you guys here today. I just wanted to share with everyone what is actually going to be happening today. Today, we have a group of some wonderful panelists, and they're going to talk to you today and answer any questions that you have. We have some prepared, but if you have some questions, feel free to drop them down below, and we'll do our best to get to them. So, just wanted to go ahead and get started. Let's take a look here. All right. So, just let you know, with Dating in these Streets, uh, it is again a Last Supper series presents production. So I'm sure you're wondering, what is Last Supper series? So Last Supper series presents was created as a means to give others a platform to share their stories of victory while empowering others how to walk in theirs. You know, there are a lot of people that go to their grave without sharing their wealth of knowledge, and we're meant to be a silence killer. So I am your host and moderator, Dominique Hayes, just giving you the many sides of me. Hello. So that's who I am. I'm also the founder, president, CEO, whatever you want to call, of the Last Supper series. Let's meet some of our people. So we have Natoya that'll be here today, Larry, Chantel, and Gabe. These are our singles. Watch how they answer those questions today, because they're definitely going to be the ones to decide what you want to, maybe you want to date them. You never know. And I like to call these people next up the better halves. We have Kim Roberts. These people are all married, but these are the better halves that are joining us today. Also, we have Antoine Davis and LaRama Sullivan. And then last but not least, we want to meet the couples. So our couples are April and Lex Anthony, Emmanuel and Doris, and Lakeisha and Siobhan Townsell. Now, just for definitely wanting to highlight everyone and let you guys know that we have a variety today. So again, very excited to share this with you, share them with you, and for them to share their experiences. Have that great mix, so you'll be able to ask questions. The first up, we're actually going to have the men. So without further ado, let me get them on, okay? I'm sure they're anxiously waiting. Hi, guys.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Can you hear me? Yep.
Yep, I can hear you. And whenever you're ready, you could definitely also just let me know.
Antoine.
Oh, looks like it kind of.
Gay, sir.
What's up, man?
Hey, guys.
How you doing?
I'm good, bro.
I need to call you.
Yes, you do.
I think we're having some technical difficulties. Hold on one second, guys. Again, we're here with the Last Supper series presents, and we're entitling it "Dating in these Streets." So here are some of our guys today. Emmanuel, how are you doing?
Well, and yourself?
I'm great. Larry, how's it going, Larry?
I'm doing well.
That's good. Antoine?
Hello.
Hello.
Doing really good.
That's good. Lex?
What's up?
Hey.
Hey, sorry I had to change position.
It's okay, no worries. I'm so glad to have you guys here with us. So we're just gonna go ahead and get started. Is that okay? Y'all ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ready.
Okay. So I'm gonna start a quick question, an easy question. So when does a man know he's ready to date? Anyone can take this one.
It's been a while for me, but I knew immediately. So like for me, I saw my wife walk by, and God told me that was my wife. So immediately I knew it was time. So like my next efforts were just pursuing her.
Okay.
To piggyback off what Antoine said, I think it has a lot with us finding someone who catches our eye, someone who we're willing to pursue, someone who we're willing to date. So I think that's a lot of it too, finding someone who you're willing to pursue and put in effort with.
Okay. Siobhan, I didn't forget about you. Sorry. There's so many people trying to get in the chat room. So this is Siobhan, everybody. We just started our questions, and the first question we asked is, how does a man know he's ready to date?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay. All right. So, all right.
I mean, I think as far as like men go, I feel like the pressure to initiate dating is always there, just because it's kind of always a guideline, especially as young men. It's like, hey, you're the one who's supposed to approach, or you're the one who's supposed to go out and like ask. So I think it's not so much like when it's appropriate, it's like when is it appropriate for you to like initiate something with a young lady. For me, I think it's when you're emotionally healthy, for sure, just in a good headspace to actually start that conversation. But I think the pressure to initiate a conversation or to initiate dating is always kind of in the background of our minds. So, especially in dating season. So,
There. So let's talk about that pressure. Can you guys describe the type of pressures that you felt either when you were dating, because we have some married men in here, or single? What does that look like? Lex, take it away.
I really don't know the answer to that. It's never been when you say pressure from family or society, it's something that's in you that gives you that desire to want to have the companionship of the opposite sex. So I can't really say it's a pressure. It's more innate or natural. It's part of being a man that has you wanting that. So it's not really a pressure. It comes from within, I think.
Okay. I like it. Okay. So with that, what are your thoughts about the female initiating dating?
I personally believe that the male should pursue. I think she comes off as needy, depending on how it's done. I think there's nothing wrong with showing that you're interested in a guy, but I think it should be the male's responsibility to pursue that.
Okay.
I think guys don't value.
Okay, guys, we're back. I'm so sorry if you we're having just a little technical difficulties, but we're back. I promise. Just stay on this page, please, and thank you. We're gonna be okay. All right. I'm freaking out, but I'm not gonna freak out. All right. So our next question that we had was, what are your thoughts on women initiating or asking the man out?
Yeah. I think that I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that the man should be the pursuer, right? The woman is the prize, and so like Antoine was saying, not that she comes off needy, but it's like, she should value herself enough that, the man is looking for you, right? And you should allow him to be the one. Now, I know that a lot of times we can be very slow. Men can be slow in saying something, right?
Yeah.
And so I know that probably can be one of the reasons why a woman is like, well, I'm just going to ask, because the dude is not saying anything. He's not being open about his feelings. And so I get it, but I think there's a better way to get his attention, right? than to be like, hey, let's go out, you know.
Yeah.
Or however it happens. It was 17 years ago for me.
I would agree with mine. I think it's a way to, for a woman to get his attention without necessarily telling them now. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I would really have a problem with one walk up and, trying to me, I'd probably eat that up. But I wouldn't really have an issue with it. To me, it wouldn't make her seem neat. Mine was not ideal, in the eyes of a man finding a wife, that I would have an issue with it. But to Siobhan's point, I think that if a woman presents herself as interested, a man should be able to pick up the signs and move from going on.
Okay. I think everybody is in agreement with that. Anyone want to add to it?
Yeah, like he said, I mean, it's a fine line. You don't come off thirsty, but it's okay to let it be known, and a subtle aggression is attractive, but don't go too hard with it. But as a man, it feels good to know that you're desired just like a woman. I mean, it's a fine line, but it's okay in small doses, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I'd agree with that too. And just to kind of add on, I was saying, I think guys value what they have to pursue after, something that they have to go after. I think they honor that a little bit more, and they respect it a little bit more. So, men are hunters and pursuers. If we have to go out and chase something and get it, I was like, at some point that becomes ours, and we value it a little bit deeper. So that's just.
Makes sense. So you guys said to be.
If I could say something else,
sure.
Just thinking about it, because it's almost like, well, does the guy really even like you, right? If you have to be the one to go after him, right? I mean, it's almost it could be a little bit of a sign for you that he may not necessarily be super interested. But again, I know it's a fine line, but I wanted to throw that in there. Yeah. For the ladies to really, really take time to think about that. If you are the one that is doing all of the pursuing, I think that my man's heart might be in a different place. My thoughts.
No, that's fair. You came for our next right there. That's okay though, Siobhan. Thanks a lot. So for what you guys said with being subtle, what does that look like? Because you do have some women that, and I'm single and ready to mingle, but some women have dominating personalities. So what does that look like to be subtle, or even to know if the person is interested? How do we test those waters?
I think you had that go ahead.
No, you can go ahead. I'll follow back.
No, go ahead. You got it.
I think it's also how you call it, like location differences, because what I tend to see out here on the West Coast is a person that's raised on the East Coast. They're a little more timid out here, and so I think that when you kind of put things into perspective, it's like they're women, men all together a little bit aggressive. Kind of even addressing that last question, I've never really had a woman or issue with a woman pursuing me. And when I say pursue, is a fine line. It's not pursuing like she's like really like thirsty after it, but it's like you can bring it to the table. I'm just not going to pay for it. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not afraid of a woman come to me and letting me know what they want, and then just being direct with that. Because also, again, since men were a little more aggressive and women naturally became aggressive, but then you also have that dynamic where if there was a woman that you like and you don't say anything or you don't speak up, somebody else going to take that. So I think that we were also something to the clock of we're a little more naturally aggressive when it comes to that post swag, I call it. But I tend to see on the West Coast, people are a little bit more relaxed. And I think women are kind of like, well, does he even notice me? Does he see me? Does he talk to me? And so I think that that's why they have a little bit more of that. Let me start the fire and then see if they can keep it going.
Okay, good. I like that. So kind of taking a step back, right? This is for men. What do you encourage men to do while you're actively waiting for God to send someone in your life?
Just seeking God, man. Like, I just look at my dating experience. I even look at the experience with my wife, and wouldn't change anything. But the process of just trying to be whole myself and not expecting her to fulfill those things where I'm empty. So just figuring out who you are in Christ, who you are as a man, being honest with yourself, and just seeking God. Because if you're more whole, when you do finally get into that relationship, it's a better relationship, and you're not two broken people trying to fix each other or fix yourself while she's trying to fix herself, and you guys are kind of bumping heads because you're not whole. So just pursue wholeness, pursue God.
To add on to what Antoine said, because I completely agree with what he said. I just think also from more of like like the practical side of things, like get your finances in order. Work on getting your job and your hustle down to a science, basically. Whatever you're planning on pursuing or working on, work at that full-heartedly, because I think the more that you work at whatever you're doing, it's like people who are doing the exact same are going to be attracted to you. So someone who's, if you're working hard on whatever it is that you've been called to, I think that you attract people who are also equally as eager and just have a work ethic or ambition for whatever path they're going down to. So.
Okay, this is great. I'm loving this. So let's talk about interracial dating. What does that look like? Why do men, and I want to say more so in the Black community, Black women, I'm going to throw us under the bus. Sometimes we have this frustration with Black men stepping out of the community and dating outside of their race. So what is the reasoning behind that? If you guys know, or throw it in, if you have dated outside of your race, what does that look like and why?
I'll answer to that.
Okay.
I don't think a lot of my perspective has more of an East Coast vibe. So there weren't a lot of options when it came to outside of the community for me. So that just wasn't an option, me going to HBCU. I mean, you look around and we have, lovely women all around. So I think that that's what it was. But stepping here on the West Coast, obviously you see a rise of the imbalance where there's more people that you can date outside the race. And I was always nervous because I've seen movies and things like that, or I've seen stories, I play that sports. So I'm like, oh, is she gonna take me for everything I have? Or there was always a curiosity if I wanted to, but then I was nervous. But actually entering into that relationship, I never really had a problem, and I never really saw it white versus Black, or Black versus another race. I just saw the person and I saw the heart. And that's usually how you should start a relationship. You shouldn't see color. You should just see the person for who they are. And as long as they have those qualities that you're looking for, I mean, I think that's a fine match. I think also for men, a lot of times when they do step outside that race, from what I've seen, is because there's a lot of support in those other communities. So it's kind of like when you don't find that support, or when you feel like you're being battered because men aren't doing what they're supposed to do, and you need to do this, you need to do that. Well, you go to these other communities, they're more welcoming and they're more supportive, like, oh, I got you, I'll do this, I'll do that. And I think that it makes it easier for them to be accepted because they're heard, they're loved, they're appreciated. And I think that for me, that's what I've seen in just my past experiences.
Okay. Anybody else want to add?
I agree with Matt. Where I am, it really wasn't nothing Black folk. So you really have something. It wasn't really issues. We didn't thinking of it. Now here is something that I definitely more probably party. However, I do know I would probably have to have some conversations with some people back home is about that which you go. So I know personally, I don't really choose to it, especially out here. I mean, you know what your options are. I mean, when you see slavery, I pick my, but that kind of like I say, it was anything black folks. So I know it'll be more prevalent areas where the demographic is greater and where it's more diverse. So I'm just with it myself.
So basically, it's more so a matter of, hey, sometimes the region doesn't give you that opportunity to have different options as well. Okay, thanks, Larry. So next question. Whew. I don't know if I want to ask this, but I'm going to ask. Why are successful men the least committed to a relationship or pursuing a relationship? That's the perception. Perception out there is that successful men don't want to pursue. Thoughts, questions, comments, outbursts?
Too many options.
Okay.
Yeah, just too many options. You have the world at your fingertips, and you have a multitude of things to choose from.
And guys, if you could, I think feedback, if you could just mute yourselves, or if you have Facebook Live, mute the Facebook Live. Okay. Great. So let's talk about, has anybody been on the end of pursuing a woman that has children? What does that dating experience look like? What's the best approach, or what was the approach that you had for that? Okay, Lex?
The approach was just patience, just following the person you're pursuing, follow their lead. Always keep in perspective, nothing comes before that person's children. You're not there to compete. Follow their lead, be patient. I mean, it's kind of like the mindset you should have. Don't take it personal. Don't be sensitive about the situation. Just follow their lead.
Like that. Great.
That's good.
I know for me, I know that I've dated women that have had children in the past. I found it really difficult, just from the standpoint of talking about like the relationship with fathers and whatnot, and then asking them kind of what they're looking for as far as the support that they need from my end. And I got a lot of pushback on don't try to be my kid's father. Don't try to be don't try to fill that role at all. And that was a little difficult hearing that piece, because it's like, if you're bringing somebody into your world, don't you want them to actively be a part of all of that? But so for me, it was just it was a more difficult experience, and something that I don't necessarily know if I want to do again, just because I know that I am actively wanting to be a father, looking to, have that role at some point in my life. So to be told not to try to take on that role was a little hurtful, and at the exact same time understandable, but it was just something that I don't necessarily know if I'd do again. So
that's real.
And I think for me, for Lakeisha and I, we both had children, that we brought into the relationship. So in our dating season, we had kids, of course, and it actually made it pretty easy for us. It was through our children that we were actually able to connect even more. So there's many different scenarios, and that was ours, of us both having very young boys. who were able to play and enjoy one another. And so that allowed Lakeisha and I to spend more time. She would say that I was setting her up, but so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's difficult as a single man with no kids. I think it's very difficult. It definitely takes a lot of patience, like the other guy said, but because you're basically second, and so when you're used to dating and you're used to being the priority in somebody's life, and then you come in and they have kids, you're basically second to those kids, and then you just add the dynamic of baby fathers and just different things, and what their relationship is, and being comfortable with the dynamics of that relationship as well. So
That's fair. I know we're at the 10:30 mark. Do you guys have time for a couple more questions? I know we kind of had a rough start. If not,
Yep.
completely understand. We're good? Okay,
Mhm.
great. So here's a good question. Having dated other women, how do you know that the woman you proposed to was the woman you wanted to marry?
Can you ask that question again?
Sure. So you dated multiple women, and now you're settling down. How do you know that the woman that you were currently dating, probably your wife now, was the person you were supposed to propose to?
I would say
I don't
just
know.
just the connection, right? You know what I mean? It's like it's the connection. Like you dated other women, you wanted to befriend them, get to know them, and it just didn't work out. And so now here is this other young lady. You've done the same thing. You courted, you dated, and y'all just connect. And so I think that's the bottom line. It's not like okay, I didn't like her, I like her. Okay, I choose you, and that's going to be that. No, it's a heart connection between that man and that woman, where it's like, yeah, we're supposed to be together. I want you to be my wife.
Got it. That's fair. All right.
And like for me, like she just did more. She took care of me. She did more than any other woman had ever done for me. She made me want to do better. She pushed me in areas. She pushed me in my career. She pushed me to be a better person. She pushed me in my relationship with Christ. She challenged me. So it was she just, not that I had dated bad women in the past, but she just outdid every woman that I had ever come in contact with.
Mm-hmm.
So I have like 3 more questions. So one question that was submitted is, what is purity and what does that look like when you're dating? So can I travel together? Can we go to each other's home? Is there accountability? What does that look like? Because I know it varies. Depends.
I think there needs to be, I didn't do it the right way, so I can tell you what not to do. And there needs to be honesty, and there needs to be boundaries. So just complete honest where you are in your walk with Christ and your feelings, but also just boundaries for me and my personality. Somebody coming to my house is not a good idea. Me spending an absorbent amount of time with you by myself is not a great idea, just because of my tendencies and where I tend to go. So public places works really well for me. And like I said, just setting up those boundaries where you can and can't go, being honest about what you struggle with, where you are in your walk with Christ, and so that other person kind of knows where you are, and it's just not a mystery to them.
Mm-hmm.
I think Manuel should answer this one.
Wow.
Woo!
Man.
Not in a bad way. I actually really honor and respect Emmanuel and the way that he's handled himself. So that's why I'm saying.
So let me give a little background, because you just like came for his neck, and it's kind of interesting how the thing is set up. So Emmanuel is engaged to Jerice. She'll be in our next segment. And Gabe is actually Jerice's brother. So this is very interesting. So Emmanuel, go for it.
All right. Well, first of all, I think to thy own self be true, similar to what Antoine said. I think in dating, just to be honest, people overcomplicate it. It's really not that hard. It's really not that difficult. I think you really have to be disciplined in where you are. And I think for me, for us, it all started with the journey of purpose. And I think that when you have a purpose, when you have a goal, you just stay committed to that. And I think that when you have a purpose that's worth more than you kind of, I guess, taking that, or you have a destination that's worth more than taking those side journeys, I think that, that's how you recognize that's the one. You know, for me, I've always said it deep down inside. I never really verbalized it, but I just said the person I marry, you know, I would never, you know, mingle with. And while I try to prove that wrong several times, I'm like, nah, we could be good. It never panned out. And then when it actually fulfilled this purpose or fulfilled that focus, I look back and that was a promise that I said to myself. And I think that's just something that as I spend time with, you know, in prayer or spend time in just learning how to be a better person or be a better man, I think purity was really just, it wasn't an obstacle that I was trying to avoid or trying to like figure out. It was like, man, I want to do this right. You know, there were going to be times where, you know, kind of like Gabe threw me out there. I wanted to speak from that. You know, I wanted to have pride to say I did it the right way. You know, I wanted to be able to stand on stage or stand in, you know, different areas to say, you know what, I did this. And since she was already living that, you know, that lifestyle, she was already kind of modeling that for me to kind of tear down everything that she's worked for over, you know, umpteen years, that would have been a discredit to not only God, but to her. So
Right.
that was me. It was just like honoring the process and honoring her, keeping her like, this is something that she did, and this is something that she's fighting for. And so I want to come alongside of that and be a partner into that.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Amen.
Sorry, I got really excited about that. Amen. Praise God. So, last two questions. What does a man's healing process look like after a breakup?
Mhm.
Because we tend to think as women that y'all are just like, oh, I'm good, keep it moving. But what does that look like? Lex, can you chime in on this? I know you're happily married. It's my cousin, all my cousins. I have a great family, but I'm just asking.
I think he's on mute.
Oh, let me unmute you. You're good.
All right, all right, my bad. Not to be too cliche, but it's honestly, and it's gonna sound corny, but just work on you. I mean, that sounds like Emmanuel said, don't over complicate it. Just work on you physically, mentally. The best way to heal is to just get better from it, learn from it, remember that pain so it doesn't happen again. Inside and out, just work on yourself, get better, learn from it, and keep it pushing.
But how does that work? And this is for anyone. Like, let's say the woman is in the same circle as you, or y'all go to the same church, because there's a lot of dating in the church going on right through here. It's the only way to really find a good man. That's what I'm told anyway. So what does that look like?
Is that all right if I answer?
Yeah, go for it.
I think first of all is just to be respectful, especially if she's rolling in the same circles as you. Be respectful of her time, her energy, and what she's doing. I think that there has to be a moment of disconnect. You know, unfortunately, especially if you've been with that person for a long time, there's going to be a lot of residual emotions, a lot of feelings that are there. So honestly, understanding that disconnecting doesn't just mean healthy for your own sake, but healthy for their sake too. And then get good things to start feeding yourself with. I know it right after a breakup, it can be some of the loneliest times that you can go through, especially as a man, because you feel like there are other things that are going on. But at the exact same time, that can also be a really good place for the enemy to take you out. So in order to make sure that you like combat different thoughts, different ideas, especially If you haven't been pure, if you haven't been on the right path, and you know that, old girl will come through if you just hit her up on the cell phone or different things like that. I think it's I think it's really important that you're feeding yourself. So I know for myself, I just got out of a really long relationship. And so one things that I did is really started plugging into Pastor Todd from Transformation Church, TD Jakes, just sermons. And I literally would listen to their sermons for like weeks at a time, just like day in, day out, just to fill my head with positive reinforcement, different things that were going on. To start, just like I think it was Alexis said, to really start working on yourself again. It's really about building yourself, your confidence back up, or different things like that. Whether or not you broke up with her, or whether or not, vice versa, it doesn't really make a difference. So I think those are important things. Really feed into your spirit, man. Start praying, start reading your word, but most importantly, start filling your head with positive things so that you can start stepping forward, so that they can start moving forward too.
Thank you.
It's too easy to backslide.
Facts. On facts.
Can I add a couple things to that?
Sure.
I feel like you're reading my biography right now, so you're just asking me all the questions.
I'm sorry. No, I wasn't. These are all prepared, I promise.
Oh my God, I don't want to not answer, but I'm like, geez, getting tapped on the shoulder here. So just really some practical things. I think for me, there were 3 stages of, I guess, this kind of journey back to wholeness. And I would say my first stage was when I first innocently got involved in a relationship, because I've only been in a handful of them, but they were all long-term. And so I guess like 4 years plus, so to speak, each one. And the first time I experienced that hurt. Because I experienced that hurt, it was like the first time getting cut. And it was very, very heartbreaking for me. And it just kind of, I don't know why me, but it just, a lot of guys are like, man, go find somebody else, But for me, I'm like, but I can't do this. So, you know what I'm saying? I was in college, it was a mess. And so I went all through that stage and went through depression and went through a very, very tough time, dark stage in my life. And then coming out of it, I thought I was healed, but I really just put a Band-Aid over it. And I came out here to Arizona and found myself in another relationship. And because I really did not check, sometimes we go get ourselves patched up, but then we never go back to get that examination to figure out, okay, I never really went back. So the second stage I found myself in is going out and hurting another person, because I'm like, you know what? She was trifling. I'm never going to let that happen to me. So now I'm basically being that man, being that dude to go out and just kind of do what I need to do, because that's what all the other guys were doing. And that's what it was told to me at that time. And so obviously being in that relationship for a few years, that was very hard, because at the end of that road, she was very, very faithful, very, very loyal. But here I am just being that guy, and looking back, it's so, it's just challenging to kind of know that I was that person, because it put her through so much like pain that I was really trying to shield myself from. But then again, I put that pain on her. So after that situation happened, the third and final stage, I felt like with my healing, and obviously this was like a 10-year journey, that final stage for me was I had to forgive myself. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that you have to experience them all in the same line that I did, or you can't have those things, but I think those are 3 things that you need to check, is make sure that you're able to forgive, you're able to receive forgiveness. And then also like take a look inside yourself and say, hey, am I okay? Because for a long period of time, I was not okay. And I thought I was okay because I just swept everything under the rug. So forgiveness is something that I really have built a brand on, built a lifestyle around. And not to say that I'm perfect, that's a very, very hard task to fulfill. But I think just really understanding those 3 areas of life. And another practical thing, if you really need some tools, Torrey Roberts, which I absolutely adore. I kind of started like modeling my life. He's like a mentor to me. He has a book called Wholeness. And I would really just impress any guy, any woman, any couple to get that book, because he really goes through the thought process of examination of where you are and where you are going from a perspective and kind of looking at where you've been. So I'll leave it at that. But I wanted to share some practical things based on that journey.
Thank you so much. You guys have been just absolutely wonderful. There's so many more questions. We may have to do a part 2 if y'all are up to it down the road. I have one last question. And while I'm asking that question, I need you guys to get together your final thoughts, any words of wisdom, anything that you want to share with the community. So I'm going to drop it like this. The S word, submission. Okay. A lot of women are like scared of that word, or they hate that word. I don't know. It's like, it's a bad thing. I don't know. It shouldn't be. But what does that look like through the dating process, or even moving into marriage? And how does no, you're not the woman, but from a male's perspective, what does that look like, the submission portion? Emmanuel, I'll let you gather your thoughts, because you're like, oh my God. Anyone? Ooh, Lex, Siobhan.
So, my thought on it is, I'm not sure where I see it in the Bible where it talks about a single woman has to submit to a single man. I've never seen that scripture before.
Okay.
But, Ephesians chapter 5 talks about, a wife submitting to her husband. But, in that as well, it says in Ephesians 5:21 that you submit one to another. So women shouldn't necessarily fear submission. It's just about getting the proper understanding of what it is in the context of marriage. Because again, a husband is supposed to submit to his wife just as much as a wife is supposed to submit to her husband according to scripture. So don't necessarily fear that word. As long as when you are in a marriage relationship, because again, I don't know if a single woman needs to submit to a single man, right? You're getting to know each other. But as long as you both have that understanding. So I encourage the brothers, if you have that, I am the man and you're supposed to submit to me. Well, read a couple verses up. It actually says that you submit one to another and get a proper understanding of what submission looks like. So, and what that means. Because I have no issue submitting to my wife, because she brings to the table some things that I need to understand, and that some things that I need to do, just the same as my wife submits to me, right? And there is no lording or hoarding that over anyone. So those are my thoughts.
Amen.
I really like what he said. Just from a single standpoint, I've been doing a lot of research on it. I mean, as men, we get, love your wives as Christ loved the church, and Christ died for this church. So basically, we have to die to ourselves in order to love our wives fully. Just throwing that one out there, So it's like a dying of ourselves in order to make sure that we're actually doing what we need to do to love correctly. And then also, I was like, women get to choose who their husbands are. They get to say yes to a man. So I was like, why are you afraid to submit to a man that you got to choose?
Well,
I'm gonna leave that one there. Sorry.
I don't. Yeah. Okay. So I think we should just go ahead and wrap that up with final. How do you? Okay. We get to. Did y'all hear that? Ladies, we get to choose. All right. So, amen. You're right. Final thoughts. Who wants to start? I'm so done. Okay, Antoine.
Final thoughts for singles: honest, transparency, and just create an environment where you're honoring your girlfriend, your spouse, and that honor will create security. That security will create the intimacy that you want.
Thank you. Larry.
Yeah, my final thoughts are clearly I need to do better. You know, I'm over here trying to take notes on what Siobhan and Antoine and Emmanuel, everybody talking about. You know what I mean? So it just goes to show you can always constantly learn and, you know, grow from the people around you. Don't be afraid to talk to other men about what's going on, because clearly they have some insight that you don't have. You know, like Antoine said, continue to be honest. I see a lot of women appreciate men being open about their past hurts. So I guess, you know, being more open to help things out. But like I say, as of right now, I just clearly need to do better. So I'm just going to keep taking notes.
Okay. Gabe, I'm afraid to.
Nothing. Just know that you're not by yourself. If you're out here trying to date and whatnot, it's as simple as it can be. It can also be a very grueling process, just in general. The emotional and mental strain that it can have on you. So just understand, God loves you. God wants the best for you. He cherishes who you are as a person, as his child, and he wouldn't ever keep a good thing from you.
Thank you. Emmanuel.
I'll say a couple things. I think the power to define is the ability to fulfill. And basically what that means is if you can't define a thing, if you don't know the purpose, then abuse is inevitable. Mm-hmm. And so if you're wanting to date somebody, you need to understand what dating is. And also, if you're wanting to date somebody, you also need to know the purpose of what you guys are trying to go with. And so kind of summing it up with the submission thing, yeah, you don't have to submit to one another's will, but if you're coming together, similar to what Gabe's saying, if I have a goal, like let's think about teams. If our goal is to win the game and you guys both have that goal, you don't submit to one another, you submit to the vision of what you guys are both trying to accomplish. And so just not ever throwing anything out there that I haven't either been exposed to or had to practice myself. Me and Jerice, our first date, now this is full transparency. Me and Jerice, our full date was at, technically we met up at Barnes & Nobles to get the book Purpose Driven. Oh. Now, transparency is we never completed the book. But the point was we started off with the perspective of purpose. And I think that was the intention from day one. It was, what are we doing? And the moment we figured out that we were heading down that same path, we were going like parallel, then we just, thought that it made sense to kind of take another step further. But that's pretty much what I would say, is just understanding what dating is, getting a real, biblical view of what that is, and then also getting a destination point. And when those two align, and you guys align, I feel like you can't lose.
Awesome. Lex?
Like the other gentleman said, more important, just communication and honesty. Those are two big things, and understand we don't have a lot of time here on earth. So regardless of the stage you're in the process, understand that, know what your deal breakers are, know what you're willing to compromise on. And if they're not checking those boxes, wash your hands and move on, because we have a short amount of time here. So you don't want to be in a situation where you're looking back and 3 or 4 years have passed and you're unhappy and this person's not changing, man or woman. So know what your deal breakers are, and if they're checking one of those boxes, pick up the pieces and move on, because this time is too valuable to be wasting in a situation that you're not happy in and you're not thriving in and you're not growing and making each other better. So that's what I would say is most important.
Thank you. And then Pastor Bishop Townsend, because you just dropped our knowledge today, sir.
So my thoughts would be, your community is everything. Mm. I think about boxing, right? So if you look at a boxing match, I'll use Muhammad Ali and I'll use his daughter Layla, right? Is that her name? I think it's Layla. It's old school. But you got a man and a woman, but these are both champions. But the reason why they're champions is not because they were in that ring by themselves. They actually had a corner with them. So they had a tape person, they had a person that could do their cuts, they had a motivator. So you always have to have your community. The moment you become isolated, that is the moment that you are doomed to lose the fight. So your community is everything. You don't need 10 people in your community. You need about a good 3, 4. You know, and that's for men and for women. You need about a good 3-4 people that can keep you accountable, that can keep you motivated, that can be there for you when you feel like you're losing the fight, when you feel like you can't, this purity thing just is not working. You need somebody to be there for you, to help you, to be able to keep it moving. So don't be isolated. Keep your community. All right, that's what I got.
Well, thank you, men, for coming in and just sharing. I hope that the audience, this wasn't meant to be like, oh, question, answer, question, answer. We really wanted you to get something from this. This is both for men and women. So I appreciate you all sharing your experiences, giving your wisdom. And I'll let y'all all go and we'll get set for the next round with our women. Thanks, guys. All right. There were 4. 4 square, 4 square, 3 triangle, 2. Oh, I think you're gonna stay. You're staying.
You want me to stay since April coming on?
Oh no, she using the same one?
Yeah.
Okay, she can come on. You don't have to stay. But if you could mute the camera for just right now until we start. Thanks. All right. Well, I hope you guys really enjoyed this first segment. And I promise you, I sincerely do apologize right now. I'm unable to see any comments, any questions. So I just don't want to interrupt the live. We were having this whole Teddy Riley babyface issue with the internet. This is what I get for talking about them. So I don't want to touch anything that would cause any type of issues. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and get started. And then, yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started. And let's go ahead and bring our women in. Hopefully they've been watching and they see that we're started. Okay. I'm so excited. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Hey. How's it going?
Good.
Good. Hi. Just
Good.
waiting on Chantel, Kim, and Larama. Did you guys have an opportunity to check out the last segment?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
You know,
Great.
it was good. Gentlemen take a little bit longer to like get in the rhythm. But it was good.
That's good.
I thought it was good. I thought it was good.
That's good.
Learned some things.
Hi, Chantel.
Hey, y'all.
Okay. What'd you think, Chantel, of this last segment?
Oh, it was good. It was some good advice given. It was the brothers was on point. I was having some text conversations on the side. This one little curl just ain't okay. There we go. Get the curl together. Yeah. So it was good. Hopefully we can live up to what the guys were saying.
Right. I honestly thought the women would be more, hey, Kim, I thought the women would go over their time. That's why I was like, let me go ahead and put the men first. But they had a lot to say, so I thought that was great.
That's amazing. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Hey.
Okay. All right. I was having some technical difficulties, so I'm like, all right now.
Oh, okay, Chantel. All right. Don't.
You know, I caught it though. I caught it. Mm-hmm.
You did. You got it. So we're just waiting on our last presenter. While she's coming in, I just wanted to take the time. I was telling everybody I was on this Teddy Riley baby face thing with the internet. So I had a pretty presentation. They can look at it afterwards. But I'm like, if I move anything and it stops the live, I'm gonna be mad. So we're just gonna keep it going. So for those of you that are just joining us, this is Last Supper Series presents Dating in These Streets. And we have a mixture of couples, better halves, as I like to call them, that were able to join today, and our singles. First up, we have Mrs. Lakeisha with I before E, Townsell, author extraordinaire. So thank you so much, Lakeisha, for joining us. Did you want to share anything?
I'm glad to be here. Excited about being able to share and learn and hear from the other ladies. Dating is a big deal. It's a big topic, so glad to be involved.
Thanks. All right, and then over to my, well, I think it's my right, but your left, I have Natoya. Hi, how's it going? She's one of our fabulous singles. If you saw her picture, she was getting it, okay? In that dress, okay? Olivia Lane, okay? All right. I hope every time I think of your business. I'm going to let you plug that later, though. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. And then we have Mrs. April Bowser. No, Anthony.
Let's get it right, cuz.
Oh, don't kill me. I'm so sorry, friend.
It's okay.
We're family, so she won't kill me. But
Yeah.
I was trying to give him the transition. Did you?
It's all good. It's
Okay.
all good.
Amen. All right. And if y'all follow her or her husband, Lex, he was just on. Listen, they have such a beautiful family. They Lex and her, I feel like they date. They're still in their dating stage. I wouldn't just be like them when I grow up. So there's that. Oh, there he goes in the background. There goes Chantel. She was from our last series, her story. A lot of you loved her. So she's back for some more. How you doing, Chantel?
Hey, y'all. I guess I'm like everybody's favorite cousin now. So back for the second time. Looking forward to this conversation. And laughing. I love to laugh. So hey, everybody.
Hey, so next up we have Mrs. LaRama Sullivan. My apologies. All right, so yes, she's new. I love her and her husband. And listen, you know you're special when the pastor lets your husband propose to you, your future husband propose to you on New Year's Eve. Okay.
Amen.
Not everybody's pastor gonna let any couple just get up there and propose, okay? Because some folks be failing at their marriage. I'm not gonna go there, and they may not set a good example. So why are we gonna let them do that? Amen. Pastors wise, amen. Next up, we have Miss Jerice Jenkins. She'll be married later on this year to Emmanuel. Girl, did you see your brother come for E's life?
Came for his neck.
I died. I said, oh, well, that'll be the last time we do that. Just kidding. And then we have Mrs. Kim Roberts. Hey, girl, hey.
Hey, y'all.
She's one of the hosts of Peer Talk. Everybody's a good acquaintance friend. She's just amazing. I see what you did with the hair. So let's go ahead and just dive right in, okay? Whew. So let's kind of back up from the beginning. How do you prepare for dating? How do you know when you're ready? Anybody?
I think for me,
Lakeisha, go ahead.
Okay, so I think it's a maturity issue, right? You know, it's something that you have to make sure that you are able to have hard conversations, able to discuss things. There is a piece of where you should be pursuing wholeness, right? So I think all of those things are important, as well as if you're able to share. You know, we can get to some practical things. If you aren't a person who's able to share yet, then you're probably not ready to date.
Note to self. Okay. Yep. Kim.
I agree. That's a good point. I was going to say, if you guys just can't have a conversation, that's a red flag to me. I'm just like, if you're not ready, like she said, to share, to have a conversation, to be honest, you probably shouldn't date. If you're still trying to, figure things out, you probably shouldn't date. If you're trying to understand yourself and what you want to do and things like that, spiritually, I think you shouldn't date. I think you're not ready to date because you're still trying to figure it out. Not to say that you can't have friends to help you and that other person would help you, but I think that if you aren't ready to, just be open and honest about things, it's a no-go.
Okay.
Yeah, and I totally agree with what was said already, but one of the things I told my daughters, I said, you're not going to date until you're in college, because most of the time, these people really don't know what they're talking about until they're mature enough and in that stage of their life to even talk about dating or having that important conversation. So they're going to hate me for it, but college it is, ladies.
Can I chime in?
Sure.
So I think there's a difference between dating and courting. And so for me, I think we overcomplicate dating. And dating is just a process of, to me, getting to know somebody and wanting to know more about that person. So I can be dating somebody that I'm not romantically involved in because I just want to get to know the person. And so to your point, Alexis, I have this conversation often with like my girlfriends because I feel like in the Black community, we have been so, it is interesting when we look at our white counterparts and how they're taught today. So they are their parents allow for Sally and Bobby to have company at 13 in the basement and it be nothing but we're just watching a movie or we're going to go to the movies together. But in our community, we're taught that you get your education, you do X, Y, and Z. Those boys only want to get in your panties. They don't want anything. So to me, sometimes we take away the opportunity at a younger age for people to understand what it is to be in the company and the presence of the opposite sex. And so for me, I've had to internalize and process that in my 30s recently because I came up in a family of don't be having sex, don't do this, I'm not going to be no grandma at this age. And so it shied me away from, I had a boyfriend in high school, but I was not doing the things that my friends were that had some babies in high school and college. But it also, I feel like, hindered me from really understanding the presence of just dating and getting to know somebody in that moment and being okay with that process in that journey. Because I'm the queen, I'm the cutoff queen. Like I've had 100 first dates. My friends will tell you, and they're probably on here. But just that process of this is the age you need to date, I think it stops people from understanding that this is just the process of me getting to know you and being a familiar place of how to deal with somebody of the opposite sex and how they should treat me. You know, it's not always about hormones and sex and things like that, but I think the Black community, this is just my opinion, we take that away from our girls because we're so pressed on somebody manipulating them and not allowing that even in the comfort of being with their parents or their peers in that dating process.
Well, amen. Okay. I know for myself, Mike and Mary, Eminem, I like to affectionately call them. It was like no dating. But fortunately enough, like around 16, and God bless this man's heart, he's married to another woman. It didn't end well for me. Let's just put it that way. I wasn't great like you. Totally did have sex. And we were in the same daggone youth ministry. So, tomato goes from one extreme to another, but I can totally understand where you're coming from. Honestly, I do. So with that being said, speaking of dating, I love, Chantel, how you said dating and courting are two different things. What is everybody's opinion on dating multiple people and you can speak on the stigma, whatever you want to kind of chime in on that.
So I think one of the important things about what Chantel was saying is the definition of dating is really important, right? Because if dating to you means I'm getting to know someone, I'm having coffee, and that's as far as it goes, there's nothing physical, there's no boundaries crossed, then the idea of dating multiple people is not scandalous, right? It's like I'm hanging out with a bunch of different guy friends and it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But if you shift that definition of dating, and I think that's what happens a lot of times, is as soon as you put a label on something, now all of a sudden there's all of these expectations attached to it. So now, I'm the only person that you can be talking to, and now there's all of these rights over your body and just all this different stuff, and that takes it up a whole nother level. So I think one of the really important things, even for younger kids, is like, we have to ask these questions. What does dating even mean to you? And once I know what your parameters are, if you're saying I'm going to be out there, I'm making emotional attachments and I'm looking for a spouse, well then no, you probably shouldn't be dating multiple people. But if you're just going on coffee dates and trying to get to know the people that are in your community, then that's not a big deal.
Fair. Anybody else want to chime in? We'll go on to the next one. Okay, said it and done. Thank you, Dries. Speaking of that, how you mentioned labels, one question that was posed was, how do you go from move from a situationship to a relationship? So I got some clarity, because situationship can look like several things. It could be a cut buddy, or there's something without labels. I'm being for real, y'all. So it was the latter, but I'd actually like to talk about both. Situationship from the perspective of there's no labels and we move to relationship, and situationship where we're cut buddies, but I want more.
What is a cut buddy? That's new for me.
Oh, can you turn up just a little bit?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. You said a cut buddy. I know what a situationship is, but first of all, if it's a situationship and you want to turn it to something more, should you turn it to something more? Because if it's a situationship, I would imagine that person would want it to become a relationship. But what is a cut buddy? Can we elaborate on that?
Sure. So just trying to, not use the words. So y'all basically just have sex with one another when y'all feel like it, but you develop feelings. I'm not saying this has happened to me. I'm just saying that may happen, but now you want more. What does that look like?
I think that's tough, because when you start having sex, I feel like there is an emotional connection. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. So it's just like, I think that's the natural thing. Now, how I feel about it, like as far as dating, not to say I'm not a virgin, of course, and I wasn't before I got married, so it's a different situation, but I feel like those situations never worked out, because it's hard to backtrack when you guys want to move into the relationship and do things the right way, and then say, hey, I'm not going to do that. That is a very challenging aspect in a relationship. And I'm not saying that they don't work out, because some do work out for people. I don't have that experience with marriage, because we did it differently than what I had done and what we had both done in the past, because we just realized this isn't the way to do it. It's not, we're getting the same result with different people kind of thing. So it's hard to not, I mean, for me, I'm gonna speak for me, as I don't know. I feel like for guys, it might be different, but it's hard to have sex with somebody and not have an emotional connection, not want to get to know them and not want to progress things. But if you do notice that they treat you a certain way when things change, it's a wrap for me. Well, what Chantel say, my cutoff game is strong, because I don't, you know what I mean? But it's a physical and emotional thing, so it's kind of tough. So, situationships, man.
I think it's hard because that's how God created us, with having oxytocin. So it's supposed to be a bond and a connection that is not easily broken when we are sexually active.
Fair. Very fair. So with that said, I love how these questions just roll into the next question. So let's say I'm dating, right? A committed relationship, and we've decided to wait until marriage, but then we slip up. Do we break up? What does that look like?
I think you should break up. Um, Depending on what you, if you committed yourself to saying, okay, we're not going to have sex before we get married, but then oops, we have sex before we get married. I mean, that's not saying that you can't come back from that and say, okay, we did this, we repented, let's just move forward, and we should know what our boundaries are. Should we be over each other's house late at night? Should we be all booed up and cuddled up? Should we even kiss? Because kissing, what our parents taught us, one thing leads to another. You get to doing stuff. So I just think make up in your mind to make that decision. Okay, we slipped up. How about we not slip up again and stay committed to that?
Fair. I like it. So ladies, what is the best way you feel you should communicate with someone that you're interested in? I know in the last segment, the men were very clear, and I didn't want to set y'all up for failure when they're like, the man should pursue the woman. But they said that, there should be, some subtlety there, like, but you should know that he actually likes you. Don't try to show your interest in someone that doesn't want you. So what does that look like?
I think,
go ahead.
Good.
I was just going to say, be the same person, like everywhere. So one of the things that I'll notice is like, sis will be walking around with an attitude or a stank face. And then like certain people will come around and I brighten it up, and it's like, dude, be the same person. Just be a kind, open, warm, welcoming person. Because I think, you may not be aware of who's looking at you, whose interests you might be piquing. And if you aren't treating people well, that person is observing, okay, like she seems cool sometimes, but I'm not quite sure. So I think one of the responsibilities we have as women is just to like help people want to be around you. You know what I mean? If you're like looking to be in a relationship, be kind, laugh, smile, like don't show up to places with an attitude. And I know it sounds like so basic, but I think that is really important for men. Like they want to see that the person that they're interested in is loved by other people, and I think that actually raises their interest in you. So it may not be like this overt thing where I have to tell you like, hey, I'd like to get coffee with you, or, I would love to hang out with you sometime. But I think being, if you are in the same circle, having conversations that can kind of naturally happen in that space is a really great way to get to know people. And then as, you kind of feel somebody is, checking you out, or like give encouragement, like help them out, because sometimes guys are nervous too.
Like that. Natoya?
Yeah, so I totally agree, Jerice. I think that part of it, like with guys, like I don't think it's my job to go out and pursue anyone. I don't, never have, and I just don't believe that as a woman, that's our job. But if a guy is showing interest that you're interested in, then why not give him some hints too? Like, you can flirt back and not be trashy. Like, say little things here and there, or, send an emoji or something. And I think that that's okay, just to let them know, like, hey, I'm also feeling the same thing, without having to go out and say, yeah, here's my number, you can pick me up here. And, like, I just think that that's unnecessary, but you can still do little things, or at least hint, so that he knows, like, it's okay and it's safe to approach you.
I like it. This is good. All right. So, excuse me. So with dating, right? Kind of touched on this with the men, but can we talk about interracial dating for a moment? Yeah. So it seems as though perception is that Black men are comfortable stepping out. And what some of the men shared was, you know, just depends on what region I'm in or just my community. What does that look like? For women, for you all, what are your thoughts on interracial dating? I'm not going to go to my initial person where I want to be like, Larama.
Well, y'all know. I have
just
stepped
wanna-
out. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait,
Go
who
ahead.
was going?
No, go ahead.
Interracial dating for me actually was a surprise because I never thought I would have married a white man. For some reason, I just didn't think a white man could have everything that I wanted because, you know, Black love, you know, that's where I was at. But going into it, it's like, okay, I was very specific with my prayer on what I wanted in a man. And I had some reservations. Like I felt some kind of way about white people. And I just feel like God placed my husband in my life to get those negative things out of me. So when I met him and we were dating, it's like, oh, okay. God, you heard my prayer because you placed everything that I prayed inside of this man and he's not Black. So that's kind of interesting to me. So for me, that's just kind of what it looked like. Interracial dating is where it's at for me. I'm just speaking for me.
Understood. Yeah. Chantel, you're just going to say something.
So I just wanted to merge the question of the interest in the pursuit with interracial dating, because I feel like sometimes there is conflicting messaging, especially in our community, about Black men that date outside of our race, but then also how non-minority women do show a strong interest in them, and then therefore that spirals their interest to pursue. And so I think it's very interesting that there's no exact way to talk about being of the interest and the pursuit, because one thing we say, I totally get, don't pursue a guy, but even to the foundation of even showing interest. And I've heard from guy friends say, I like a woman who shows interest, who, you know, has reached out to me and said, hey, I think you're attractive. Would you like to hang out sometime? And then step two is he's taking that to say, I'm going to pursue this woman, or I'm just not interested. But it was kind of the consensus that I don't even really want to show interest, you know? And so, but the white women, they show the interest, and that's how they end up with all these athletes, as we seen on the draft. Black mama had to pull the homegirl up out of the thing. But I bet y'all he's gonna marry her, and I bet y'all Becky was on him like no other, while some Black girl was like, oh, he's cute in the class, I think he's attractive. Now Becky was like, it's a seat right here, I'm about to sit right here and show my interest. And so I just think sometimes we get so caught up in the pursuit and like just simply expressing, I think you're cute. Hey, what you want to grab coffee? And then if it goes from there, then I think it's upon the man to do that. But I think when it comes to interracial dating, especially on the flip side, that's how it gets done. And I think sometimes we miss out on some blessings because Becky didn't slid on in there. But, you know, as far as me and interracial dating, I dated one white guy. It didn't really pan out, but yeah. Maybe one other time, but it didn't work out, the sister.
Okay.
Totally understand what you're saying. So I agree, but I think, I'm gonna just be honest, I think that some white guys, some are just curious about Black women. And they just like, you know, they've heard the stereotypes, just like white women or Caucasian women, however the correct, however y'all want to do it. They are just curious. They heard that Black men, I'm gonna just be real with y'all, real honest and raw right now. They have big pickles. So they might be like, oh, well, it's a curiosity thing because of all the stereotypes. This is the part that people don't want to talk about. So I'm gonna be real raw and real with you right now. But it's just, honestly, they're like, oh, I heard Black women. I'll say from my experience, the white guy that I dated, it came out later, because had it come out before, it would have been a no-go. But he was just like, I heard you guys have really nice skin and the products you use, and it's just like, you're just beautiful creatures, which was a compliment. but you're not dating me because you necessarily like me. It's a curiosity of a stereotype that's been worked up that now you just want to pursue it just to see what it's like. So you have to be careful with that type of interracial dating. And that's not always the case. So don't think that Lorama is an example. That is not always the case how it works. But sometimes like they show their interest because they're just, and I don't think it's just a Becky thing, Chantel. I think white guys are very aggressive with it, in my perspective, about, hey, what's up? I think you look good. Like, you know, let's do this, whatever. And it's just like, sometimes as Black women, I think to the point that Chantel was saying, you don't know how to react to that because you're like, wait a minute, hold up. Like, you're being aggressive. Usually I'm used to this cat and mouse game where the ones that I've dated have been straight to the point, and it's been 2. So just so you get that out there. And it was just like, oh, okay, like, how do I respond to this? Because now you're just being so honest and open and upfront, where I feel like, I hate to call her Becky, but you know what I mean? But she was just very open and upfront as well. Like, hey, I'm just gonna, date you or all that other stuff. So, I mean, I just think it could go either way, but I think that when you're in a mature interracial dating relationship, like, it's gonna be more than the curiosity of just dating a Black woman or dating a white guy. It's more of a connection there. So it just depends. Like, so when I was dating, it was in college. So it was a curiosity thing. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna give you a try. Let's just see how this pan out. But when we go to talking about, Black issues, it's just like crickets. You know what I mean? Because it's like, because he doesn't know what to say. And then when he goes to talk about things that he's facing, or Caucasian issues or white issues or whatever you want to call it, I'm like, oh, but no, that's not how we see that. So it's like very different interaction for me. So I think that's why those situations didn't work out. But I mean, and it was a curiosity thing. We were both curious to figure it out. And I was like, it's something different. So I'm not gonna like X out because I don't know what I like. You know what I mean? At this moment, I'm dating you to understand you and to get to know you. And I just feel like so many people put color emphasis on everything. And it's just people are who they are at the end of the day. And like dating is a part of the way that you get to know that. Yeah. So, but I don't know, man, about that draft. It was a couple mamas pulling some people off, but they cheering. Okay, so we'll see how that work out. And then there was a whole meme about Russell Wilson. She thought she was set for life. First one, he gone. But that's neither here nor there. But it is what it is, man. It's just a curiosity thing. I'm being real honest. I'm sorry, Doris. Let me stop. Doris laughing at me. Let me stop. All right. I'm done.
It's real. That's y'all's truth. And I did see the mama pull the girl off. I just, that's the time for her and her son to celebrate family. You need to know your boundaries, and ma'am, you done reached past your boundaries. Okay. But on the flip side, just, because there are happy endings, like Lorama and Jeremy. They're happily married, got 2 kids, little sweet potato. Love him a little sweet potato. I'm not gonna put his name out there because that's none of nobody's business. So speaking of boundaries, let's talk about that. What do boundaries look like when you're dating? Natoya. And I want to hear from April too.
So for me, I think there's a couple of different things because I have a daughter. And so I'm very careful. My daughter's never been introduced to any other person outside of her dad. So she doesn't know, but also on the same side of that, my daughter's very with it. And so I have like open conversation with her. And she's to the point now, she's just believing God for her mother to get married. So she has a whole thing where she's believing God. So it's funny, but I'm open with her. And that's another thing, like, because I have a daughter, it's my boundaries, but it's also her boundaries, and protecting her heart as well as my heart, because I'm not going to just be dragging her along in a bunch of different relationships. And so that she starts seeing, oh, this is just a cycle of divorce. And I don't want her to start seeing that and believe that that's a way of life and that's how women should be treated. And so I'm careful with a lot of different things on the times like that I would talk to a guy. You're not going to be able to get a hold of me all day. One, I'm busy. And 2, the other side of it is I have a daughter. Like, you're not going to have all her time either, so that's something that, up front, he's going to need to understand, is that a lot of my boundaries are also boundaries that are in place to protect my daughter. So, and to protect her time. And so, there's a lot of things that I tend to do. Like I don't have conversations while she's, while it's her time. So I wouldn't be having a conversation with a guy. I would communicate also with my daughter on, mommy's gonna go on a date. I haven't went on any, but I would communicate that with her. This is what mommy's gonna be back at this time, because she's the type of kid that will stay up and wait for me. Like even if I'm going out with friends, she will wait for me to get home. And if it's late, she will call me and ask where I'm at. And so yeah, she literally has called me on her own. She has a little cell phone on her, a little watch, and she has called me like, where are you at? So I have someone who's holding me accountable. And if I'm trying to tell her like, do this and don't do this, and this is appropriate, but then I'm not doing it, then that's a whole nother, thing. One, she's gonna call me out because that's just her personality, but it's just not a good example for her. So a lot of my boundaries are built around, yes, me, but also they're built around protecting her heart, protecting what she's exposed to. So I just, there's a lot of things like, no, man wouldn't even know her name. Like it's irrelevant. A lot of times I've had people like, oh, do you have children? Yes, I have a child. That's it. So I kind of leave that off to the side. That's not a conversation at this point, because me and you are not in a relationship. So a lot of boundaries that I have is just, it's a lot of it protects my daughter, some things in place to protect her and protect her heart.
I love that. April?
Yeah, so my situation was a little bit different with my husband that I'm with now. We actually were in the same church, and he already knew my daughters. So we couldn't really have that type of boundary for him to just kind of stay away while we were doing our dating thing. But of course, we did have the boundaries of being able to visit at certain times during the day. And if my daughters were there, he probably wasn't allowed to come over to the house or come to visit. So the other thing is just making sure you lay down a foundation at the front or the start of the relationship for whatever boundaries you are going to abide by, just to make it plain, pretty much. Everybody needs to be on the same page.
There. Short and simple. Listen, I'm protecting my heart, my child's heart. Y'all ain't coming up in here only during the day. I caught the days, so there are no night hours. Don't know yet. Okay, yeah, amen. We've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Okay. But speaking of the church, what does dating look like in the church? Especially, like, let's say you dated multiple people in the church, or he's dated multiple people in the church. Like, is that awkward? What does that look like?
Oh my gosh. So Siobhan and I went to the same church. That's how we met. And I think it may have been like 3,000 members. Okay. And you can imagine that there's more women than men.
Always.
Yeah. So when we first started dating, it was interesting because there were this group, like 5 women or so, who were interested in him, attracted to him, and confronted me about their interest in him.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but it was a lot of awkwardness, right? But here's where the maturity piece came in and showed up. Siobhan was only 25 years old, and I think I was like 26 or something. What he did was he called each of those women with me on the phone and said to those women, hey, this is Siobhan. I have Lakeisha on the phone. I need to first apologize to you, Becky, and let you know that I have misled you in thinking that I was interested in you by maybe my actions or things that I've said to you, but my interest is with Lakeisha and we are courting. So that what was awkward about that, even with it being 3,000 people, we were leaders in that church, right? So I was, with these women, singing with some of the women, hanging out outside of the church with some of these women, and not a whole lot, but somewhat. So it made it very awkward. And I felt some kind of way about it. I felt like, I don't want a man that nobody wants, but I don't want a man that everybody wants either. Like I want some balance in it. And 5 women, with 3,000 people, I guess that's not like every woman wants him, but it still was awkward for me. It still was very uncomfortable for me, because then it caused me to even question, his integrity, his character. Although he showed up strong at the end with making the phone calls and things, still kind of like I had to work that out on my own. With that insecurity and feeling some kind of way and thinking some kind of way because of the actions that took place. Well, what was you doing to have these women, like thinking that y'all were about to go into more than a friendship?
Yeah.
Right. So it's so awkward. I mean, it was very uncomfortable in the beginning for me, dating in the church.
I commend Sean for just listen, I got her on the phone, you on the phone. There's not going to be any miscommunication. It is what it is. Ooh, okay.
Yeah, at 25 years old, because when I think about it now, I know there's some 35-year-olds that ain't doing that. So at 25,
You're right. You're right. Well, there's that. But how do you do that?
And to that point, it's like, if you do have a guy that is active in his church, we are assuming hopefully he wants to be married, that's the intent, right? So if he is going to find a wife, we also have to assume he's going to need to date. And possibly his best option and pool of women who share his values are going to be at his church. So I think, we got to put the facts out there. And as everybody has mentioned, typically there are going to be more women in that church than men. So with that said, I think the issue is not about dating in the church, it's how. How are we dating in the church? And I know one of the things, that Emmanuel and I talked about from the very beginning was our time together should leave each other better and not bitter and broken. Right? And I think a lot of times we're not dating with care for our brothers and sisters in Christ. Siobhan may or may not have been doing anything because, people can blow things up. But I think we all have a responsibility to date with care, which means I'm not going to be at your house. I'm not going to be pursuing you sexually if you're not my spouse, because if you're not my spouse, you're someone else's spouse. And potentially someone else's spouse in my church, right? So it's like, we have to have a broad, long view concept of dating, and it's unfair to emotionally entangle a whole bunch of people and leave bodies in our wake because we haven't properly stewarded the responsibility of dating. It is a responsibility. Show up as an adult, be accountable, and be responsible for your community. And then, we can get to know people, and I think we would all be better for it, right? But it's like when we pursue people and we don't have strong intentions and strong values, a bunch of people get hurt, and it sucks. And then people start getting these reputations that really don't reflect them. It's just like, I was trying to find a wife, and hopefully someone who believes what I believe. Or I was trying to find a husband, and hopefully someone who believes what I believe. So I think we could all do better to just be a little more adult and have better boundaries personally, which would protect the entire community.
Thank you. That was so mature.
Go ahead.
Nope, go ahead, friend.
I agree with everything Jerice is saying. The part that really hit me is show up as an adult. Amen. Men and women, because I'm going to tell you this. I'll speak from my perspective because I served in a church that I used to attend, and I was like, there was guys, there was girls, but some of the guys thought that I was interested in them because I would laugh and joke and be funny. No, I'm just showing up, like Jeree said, I'm showing up with a smile. I'm showing up, you know, being happy, being pleasant. That don't mean I like you. let's just be honest. I love you.
Yeah.
You are my brother in love, but that doesn't mean I'm trying to be in a relationship or anything like that. And I think for women, it's the same thing. Every guy who opened the door for you, every guy who does something nice for you isn't trying to date you. It's just, he's trying to just, you know, be a good person. Yep. So I think when Jerese is talking about show up as an adult, that's part of what she means, like, and you do have to understand that guy that's looking for a wife, assuming that he wants to get married, that he is going to look for someone in there, and it's a way to handle it. As far as me, I was very private with mine because I feel like even his friends, and I know they might have felt some kind of way, and my friends, I did not know, or the friends that I had in the church did not know we were dating until after we had been dating for a while. And I kept it that way because, one, I was still trying to build relationships, and two, I was still trying to check on things and see what was what. So I think that it's nothing wrong with show up as an adult. I mean, Jerese, just put that on the t-shirt because I'm gonna be the first person to buy it. When you date, show up as an adult, because like you just have to like understand that people don't have those boundaries, and being that you're in the same communities and you're in the same church, that they just feel like, oh, you're up for you belong to me because I've known you the longest, and that's not the case. Or that they feel like, oh, well, she's been flirting and laughing with me a lot more. But you have to understand, I've never been out with you alone. It's always been in a group setting. So how did you come up with that conclusion? Some people just, they take it that extra step, and it's just like, whoa, let's reel it back here. Let's like understand all perspectives first, and like really communicate what you're trying to do, because it might not be that perceived that way from the other person.
That's so true. So true. I know like we're like completely over time. Do y'all have time for a couple more questions? If you have to drop, I completely understand. Okay. So speaking of, you mentioned, Kim, just about, you didn't tell your friends for a certain period of time. There's a question that was posed. Should you tell your, should you date someone your friends dislike?
I will say you got to be careful with that, and here's why. Because you know your friends better than your friends know this person that you're dating, and depends on where they are in their walk and relationship status, if you can take their advice or not. So if somebody just broke up with somebody and they're real bitter, they're going to have an attitude. So you got to be careful, and you got to give grace and allow them time to heal. But if it's like all of them and they're like, nah, girl, he's this, he's that, I'm going to, especially if we've been friends for a long time, I'm going to take what you're saying into consideration and really start to open my eyes to watch for those things. But if he just like real disrespectful, like, and I'm gonna say it's a no. But I feel like there's boundaries with that, because the boundaries that you set in your relationship are the same boundaries you set in your friendship. So it really, that's a good question, because it's just so many gray areas, and depending on if you got a big group of friends and all these women got different personalities, all these women have different views on dating, you have to be very, very careful with who you listen to in that area, especially where they are in their relationships or have been. So that's a tough question for me. It depends. It really, really depends. If I know that friend of mine is really in a healthy spot and everything like that, I think I could roll with it. But if they're coming from a bitter spot, I'm really not hearing you. I'm gonna listen to you, but I'm not really hearing you, because I'm not really sure, if you're healed.
Yeah.
To give advice in that area. So that's a good question.
Yeah.
That's tough. Anybody else want to answer that? Because I'm on the depends where they are in their walk phase.
My philosophy is if it floats your boat, it rocks mine. We are all grown, we are all adults, we all make decisions, and just because my personality doesn't click with that person's personality doesn't mean that person doesn't make you happy. Now, if that person is abusive physically, emotionally, now I will have an opinion, but I have friends where I'm like, your husband's sketchy, but hey, it works for y'all, or your boy, I just wouldn't put up with that. But as long as it's not a physical, an abusive situation, I let people handle it on their own, because I know I've dated people that I was head over heels, and it didn't work out. And my friends told me on the back end, like, I knew this shit wasn't gonna work out. But you know, hey, you gotta sometimes go through to get through and grow. So, you know, it could be one of those situations for them too. So as long as that person is just not out here just whopping them by the head, I'll be letting people live. Plus, sometimes if you say something, it then ruins your friendship, because we all know women are gonna always side with their man.
Go through to get through. I like that. I know I'm the moderator, but just to give an example, I had a friend who was dating someone, and like she allowed me to meet them like before, like, and I'm a bulldog, pit bull, call it what you want to call it. Like, he's not picking you up at your house. He can pick you up at our house. He came in the house and I grilled him from A to Z. I have no chill. But with that, like, I did have the perception, like, and I even found out some things later on, like, he is no good. And I told her that because I'm that friend that's going to tell you about you or whatever. And I want that vice, you know, the same way. And for the longest time, she didn't listen to me. We ended up not being friends for quite some time because of it. And she came, like, our friendship is just now coming back, and she's no longer with that person. Like, he's a straight counterfeit. And, you know, from that, it's just learning, hey, and this is what I've tried to incorporate. What type of friend do you want me to be? And so when I ask those questions, now I know, are you going to listen to me? Because if you're not going to listen to me, I'm not going to waste my air. And then two, hey, if they're like, hey, I want you to be Dom, but be a little, not so much like cutthroat, then I know how to approach it so they're able to listen. But I think you make a valid point with some friends. They're just going to do what they want to do. And you, on the flip side, as a friend, you're just like, okay, how should I handle this?
So one thing, just from personal experience with some friends, they just have the relationship binders on. So they're in the midst of the situation and they really can't see what from the outside looking in. So that friend that really loves you and really can see the situation for what it is, there's sometimes where you can just listen to whatever they have to say, and then try to see what the validity is of whatever they were just trying to tell you for yourself. That's one of the important things to do, because we do get in a whole mindset where it's like, oh, he can't do any wrong or anything like that while we're in it. But it takes somebody else that's looking from the outside to us some reality.
That's good. This is great advice. Okay, I just got a couple more, I promise. So why, this is a specific question. Why do Black women overlook certain types of men when they're younger and then want to date them once they see the light?
Because we didn't show up to dating as an adult, Jerice.
Okay, next. Done. All right, they weren't an adult. Okay, great. Next.
Well, no, I'm just saying that. Let other people answer. I'm just saying that's a valid point.
No, let's keep it short and simple. That's it. Jerice, you didn't got the answer for everything. That's it. We didn't show up as an adult. I'm gonna say that. You know what? I'm sorry, I didn't show up as an adult today. My apologies. So how do you get the guy that you are dating to trust you with his heart, to tell you what his fears are and what his dreams are? Ooh, y'all quiet.
I think it takes time. It ain't gonna happen right away. Like, I just think with guys, I think they're a little bit more reserved. As women, we love to talk, we like to, and like sometimes we can just go. So I think with men, I think it takes time. Like, as you're dating, it takes time, and it's gonna be, now I'm not saying that he has to hold and hide everything, but for certain things, like his biggest fears, sometimes guys aren't as open, I guess, in my perspective, as women are. Some, not all, guys, don't kill me now. But, and I think that you just have to give it time for him to be like, oh, I can, build that trust with you to say, hey, I can say this to you, and I know that you're not going to use it against me or whatever to, harm me in any way. So I think it's just, And I think women can be like that as well. But I think it just takes time. I think it's time to build a relationship. It's time for you guys to have those conversations. And then as it'll just come organically. It's not like it's going to happen overnight. And I think that's one of the biggest things. People have to be patient with that and allow people time to, you know, kind of get into that area. Whereas some people can just be right up front with it. So I just say time.
That's good. Anyone else want to add?
Yeah, I'll add trusting his judgment. You know, when you trust a man's judgment, then he can open up his heart and share his fears and his concerns.
I would say though, if it has been some amount of time and that's not happening, that is a question mark. And I think that people often continue with relationships assuming that a person is going to change. And so if you're seeing that now, it's very likely, like let's say it's been a year, it's been a year and a half, 2 years, and there's still not like a depth of intimacy growing or trust growing. That's concerning. So, you know, I think you give it time, but also give yourself kind of a mental, like, if I don't see this happening, you know, maybe we need to bring in more resources, or maybe it's time to like say, hey, this is not direction, or I need more from this relationship if we're going to progress further. Because what you don't want to do is sell yourself a lie that this person is going to become some open, honest, vulnerable man, you know, once you put a ring on, because that's not the case.
Ooh, amen. We about to get to that ring question in a second. I got two questions. One, and then we're going to do the 2 questions. While we're doing that, if you guys get together your final thoughts, words of wisdom, anything that you want to share with the community, greatly appreciate it. So,
hey,
Dominique, your couple of questions been like 10 questions. Just FYI.
I'm sorry. The people need to know. I'm trying to do this in order. I'm sorry, y'all long-winded. I said a minute. Y'all going on for 5 minutes telling your testimonies. But I appreciate you calling me out, friend. Okay, so what does the natural healing process look like after a breakup?
I think I can speak a little towards that. So I think it can take time. And so I used to think that, oh, you just get to a place and it's like, you're better, you're all healed, you're this perfect person. But it's just an ever evolving process too. I don't think you just arrive, but you get to a place and then you're good, but then God might reveal some other things like, but you need to work on this now. And you're like, oh, wow, okay. And then it's just something that it's going to always be a process. But at the same time, like I would never go into dating with having some messy baby daddy drama, or, you know, want someone that has some messy baby mama drama. So getting rid of all of that stuff, healing from any of that drama through counseling, like clinical counseling, spiritual counseling, mentors, books, and just allowing God to have your heart where you're not in a place of like just rushing in to get into another relationship, but like sitting down and having some time where you're not dating anyone, no one else has your time but God, to just really like do some heart surgeries and impartations in your heart so that you can truly be healed. So a place where you can, like, when someone says, how are you doing today? You can like genuinely say, I'm good, instead of like lying and saying like, I'm good, you know? So like you can really say it and actually mean it because you spent time with God. You spent time doing the work with books and you've been journaling and just at a place to where, you know, you can be praying for that person that, you know, you broke. That's one thing for like there's 2 things like I always joke about even with some of my friends. And it's like, if I am like bitter or mad at someone, I love to like buy gifts for people. So it's like, if I can't buy them a gift, I'm still mad at them, or just in general, like, but if I can send someone a card, I can send them an email that says, I pray that you're just doing well. That means I'm in a good place because I can give you a gift. Because for me, giving gifts is just like a huge thing. So if I can do that and not be angry, and then I'm I've gone through some healing, so I kind of like test it on different levels. So, you know, if someone receives a gift from me, it's probably because I was mad at you. No, I'm joking. But I just try to make sure my heart's in the right place, and like, you know what, I'm gonna make sure my heart, you know, my flesh is gonna give this gift. But no, I just think you have to take time. Like, it's time. It's not something that just, you know, you get out of a relationship, a 2-year relationship 1 month, and then, you know, 2 months later you're in another serious relationship. I don't think, personally for me, I would have said that I sat down and I really had time to heal.
That's good. I like that gift thing. I may need to take that.
And I definitely agree with Natoya and just the resources and making sure you give yourself time, but also just being accountable to self. Oftentimes we don't want to take accountability to the heartbreak and getting over that recovery process, and typically putting the onus on the other person. Well, they hurt me and they did this, and this is what they did to me in this situation, versus taking time to reflect and be like, well, you allowed this to happen and you played the role in this, and not being the perfectionist in that process, in the breakup, or trying to heal from that. And so that has been like probably one of the toughest things I've had to learn in the journey of heartache and healing in that process, is taking the accountability, because so often I wanted to put it on the other person and the hurt they caused me, but not taking into account, okay, well, you allowed these things to happen, or this is what this happened, or you did this as part of this situation. So I think having that accountability and not putting it solely 100% on another person as being the reason why.
That's good.
I agree. I also think for your healing process, you have to be okay with not getting the apology that you think you deserve. Period. That's it. That's all I got. Everything that they said plus that. So, and then show up as an adult. I'm sorry, Doris. I'm just going to keep saying that. I just can't get over it.
That's going to be a whole hashtag, show up as an adult. Thanks. Amen. Okay, last question, and then you get your final words. Promise. How long is too long to date without getting the ring? I want answers from everybody here, okay?
So I'll take it first. I think it would just depend on the relationship that you're in. And a lot of people say, well, you should give this person an ultimatum because it's been too long. It's been 5 years and you still don't have a ring yet. Well, that's not their decision. They're not in the same relationship in the communion with that other person that you are. So don't let anybody else determine, well, you should have had a ring by now. It's between you and that other person. So, I mean, it just depends on what type of relationship you're in, what you're willing to wait for, how much you really want to actually get married. Because if you make that request known, sometimes people are in a relationship and they don't even know the other one wants to get married. So make sure everything is known up front, your goals for the relationship.
It's fair. That was very adultish of you. Who else wants to go?
I think upfront intentionality is so important. I can't stress that enough. Like you both need to know what the end game is, and I think women need to be honest. You know, it doesn't need to be first date, you know, I'm looking to get married and have 5 kids, but it's like at some point in the early stages of the relationship, it needs to be clear, this is where I'm headed. And particularly as you get older, you know, it's like when you're in your 30s, your 40s, like y'all done seen some life, you know, people know what they want at that point. So I think, you know, that's also very different than if you are dating in college and trying to get through your education or you know, other things in life can lengthen that process and possibly should if there's time for maturity and growth and all that different stuff. But I think the older you are, as you're into your 30s and 40s, like that should be an upfront conversation. And personally, I don't think that takes more than a couple of years because you're old and you know, and if I'm not the one, let me go so I can go find the one who is the one, right? That's my thing. Like, let's not waste people's time. That being said, One of the things that Emmanuel told me actually when he proposed was that he appreciated that I trusted him with our process. And I never put more pressure on him to rush that process. And so I think part of that too is internally having that conversation with the Lord. Like, what is going on here? You know, is this person stalling on me? What is their true intention? And so I think there are some conversations that need to be happening with you and the person you're dating. There are other conversations that need to be happening with you, if you're a believer, with you and the Holy Spirit, because he is going to also give you like that sense of peace to tell you, no, he's really doing everything he needs to be doing. You just need to be patient. So, you know, it's a hard question to answer, but I think intentionality up front and then having that back end relationship with the Lord is really important.
That's good.
I think you should give somebody 4 seasons. Well, for me, I'm 35. I'm not about to be wasting more than 4 seasons with you. By the 5th season, we need to have some serious conversations, because I can waste my own damn time. So if you don't know in 4 seasons whether or not, if we spending time together like that, like, you not about to keep getting no more seasons. Nope, not doing it. Not here for it. Now, if I was in my 20s, that might be a different story, but this is a new day. Not 4 seasons.
No more seasons.
Chantel, I was in my 20s, and we dated. We knew each other, right, because of being at the church. But we dated, got engaged, and got married. I think it was probably 18 months. Yeah. So I mean, ours was really, really quick, but we did know each other. We were with each other a lot because of serving in ministry together. But I mean, so it depends, obviously, but I'm like, if you don't know, then you need to be alone so that you can know. That's how I feel. I don't think that you need to really be involved with me or maybe anyone if you don't know, because that means that you're still growing, and that's okay. That is absolutely okay. But yeah, we were 18 months and going on 17 years.
Yay! Oh, that makes me so happy. That was so great. I got.
Oh, is 10 years too long?
Yes. Yes, it
I
is.
just wanted to see all y'all faces. I didn't
7
wait 10
years.
I just wanted to see all y'all faces.
Girl.
All right, I'm done. I'm done.
No, there's no 7 years a slave here.
Listen, okay?
Okay?
I
No
said 10.
Him played too much. She was like, is 10 years too long? I was like,
I felt away.
Everybody leaned in.
And then when we say ring, we don't mean promise ring. We mean engagement ring. Let's just click edification for the clarification for the edification of the clarification. Listen, don't be a promise ring. No, that ain't it. That's not it. That's what I mean. I've seen that.
Who's still giving promise rings except the
Can I
teenagers?
just add one more thing too? A ring is cool, but also can we get a date on the wedding? Like, let's not be engaged forever either.
Yes, that part.
Sorry, I just had to get that.
Throw it out there.
Agree.
That's a real hot topic right there. Okay, so
listen, where we come from, where Siobhan and I come from, we had to have a date on the calendar before we were even considered engaged. The ring was just a display, but that date on the calendar was really showing what was in our heart.
Wow.
So
I like that. Okay, so 4 seasons. Give me a date. We are no longer 7 years a slave. Got it. Done. If you didn't take anything from that, the only other hashtag is show up as an adult. You're welcome. So this has been absolutely wonderful, ladies. Thank you so much for joining. I want to give you the opportunity to give your final thoughts, final words of wisdom, questions, concerns, outbursts. The floor is yours. I'm just going to go down the line from what I see. So April, you're up first.
All right. So with everything that's been said, I just wanted to focus on 5 words mainly. For healthy, meaningful relationships, you need to be able to commune, not only with each other, but with God, of course, at the head, be able to communicate. That was one of the things that caused one of my failed relationships in the past. Make sure you're able to compromise. There's a lot of people that come into relationships that are selfish. So let's not act for self, because the whole meaning of a relationship is to have that with another person. Be able to customize your relationship. A lot of people look to social media or TV shows to give them an idea of what marriage or a relationship looks like. Make sure you customize it to whatever you're doing. And then also make sure you claim, whether that be, you know it's going to happen in private, but make sure your person can claim you for public as well. And that's pretty much my final word.
Oh, look, listen, I had to write that down. I would just make sure we got that right. You gave us the 5 C's. My God. Okay. Commune, communicate, compromise, customize. Holy Spirit is all on that. And claim. Well, again, you're welcome. I'm going to have to hit you up on the side, cousin, because. All right. Who wants to go next? Rama.
I just want to say, make sure you love yourself, know who you are. A lot of times people always pray, God, my husband needs to be this, my husband or my boyfriend needs to be this. Pray about yourself. God, prepare me for dating, prepare me to be a wonderful wife, you know, for my future husband. Also, I want to say, date with intention. Know what you want. That's pretty important, just to know what you want when dating.
Good. I'm writing all of this down because I'm currently single and ready to mingle, I think, or maybe I'm selfish. I don't know. I'll show up as an adult though when it's time. Okay. Natolia or Chantel?
Yeah. So I would say that just boundaries are super important, especially, I mean, either way, but if you have a child, consider their heart in dating, consider, you know, what's going to be in the best interest of your child in the future. Look at all of that in the future, like kind of foresee that. And so just boundaries, and then just really spending time to get to know yourself, spending time seeking healing, spending time reading, journaling, getting mentors, just anything that you need to do to just become the best version of yourself. I think that's important, and not always just when we're praying about, you know, Lord, send me this person, send me that person, but just like, let me just be the best version of myself for me, outside of what he's gonna bring. But like, I want to come in whole, but I want to come in the best version of me, and just be happy with me outside of anything else. So.
Ooh, that's good. I'm sorry, Kim?
I agree with everything everybody else said. I think that some of the points, I mean, they pretty much checked off everything, kind of, or not everything, but some of the things that I had. But I think I'll say this: when you are dating, and I think this is in the day and age that we live right now, don't over research. I think you're setting yourself up for prejudging, because you might be over researching and look at somebody's Facebook pictures from 55 years ago. All right, well, maybe not 55, but 5 or 6 years ago, and they are not that same person. So I think for me, like when people start dating, I'm like, dang, because I look at everything is online right now. Like everybody's on their whereabouts, where they at. I mean, well, everybody at home now, but everybody like before was like out and about. I think because that will hinder your judgment when you're going into it. It's nothing wrong with knowing, you know who the person is and doing a little research, but don't overdo it. Don't go back to those Facebook pictures from 10 years ago and be like, oh, so you was at the club, you was doing all this, because that person might not be that person anymore.
True.
So aside from everything that they've given, their advice is amazing. I just think if you're gonna start dating, don't over research, so that you don't go into the relationship with judgment, thinking that this person is still that person. That's all I got.
Chantel?
I agree with what's been said. Definitely that research thing. Inspector Gadget. It's my side name, but something I would add is just bring something to the table. Have your own life, have your own goals and ambitions, and just be fulfilling and living your life in the midst of seeking somebody. And then two, just be open. I look back to that question where I think Kim answered it with being an adult, where why didn't we get with a certain type of man? We look back, hell, because everybody I coulda, shoulda, woulda dated is married, that had interest in me, but I was like, he kind of like, making up excuses. You got to get past that. He might not come in the package, and it is a process. I'm prophesying, speaking to myself, chasing the ones that ain't right for you, but they be seeking you. But the ones that ain't, you might have a little tweak to them, but just be a little bit open. Would also be my advice. But make sure you bringing something to the table.
So good. I'm like really writing that stuff, like for real. Therese?
I would say know your values and stay true to them. Women have a lot of power, and I think a lot of that power comes from knowing yourself and knowing what you are willing to deal with and not deal with. And so that is your responsibility alone. However people treat you, you are allowing them to treat you that way. And so stick with that. Stick with your values. I just want to encourage people, like, you don't have to compromise on anything. Like, there is someone out there who is going to come to the level and the standard that you set in your life. And so you should never feel like you have to lower that in order to be with somebody. Men and women, we rise to the standard for the person that we feel is worth it. And one of the things Emmanuel always talks about is how if you go to a high-end, car lot, they don't let you test drive the cars because they feel like you ought to know what you want. And if you have the $200,000 to drop on this car, then that's what it is. Because if you're not going to pay the price, it's someone else's car. Mm-hmm. And so, it's the same thing for us. Like, we are so valuable as women. If someone isn't going to pay the price, let them go, because there's someone else out there who will. And so protect your heart, protect yourself, and don't allow people to just come into your house and break you.
Don't allow people to come into your house. I got a little safety stick on my door right now so nobody can come in. Listen, stop playing. And it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. That's the whole word. Amen. Go ahead and finish this off, Miss Lakeisha, I.E. author.
You need to tell them the backstory with the IE.
You right. Okay, that's fine. So basically, every time that I communicated with Lakeisha, I kept spelling her name wrong. I did E-I. And she was so nice about it, so polite. I before E, except after C. She said, follow that rule. And I still didn't listen. So now I have it in my system. So I will forever refer to Lakeisha, I before E. Townsel. Done.
Yay. So Larama said it already, but know who you are. I would add, and be consistent in being you. And then embracing evolving, right? And then forgive and forget. And that is a whole word in itself, but forgiving yourself, failed relationships, the ones that you feel like, man, I was wrong in that. I probably should have gave that person a chance. Or if someone has wronged you, and not that you're to go back to them, but forgiving yourself, forgiving the past relationships, and then forgetting. So it's forgive and forget, because if you are constantly still trying to remember or allowing Satan to bring in those thoughts about the relationships that were failed, then that's exactly what you'll end up going into again. Because what we think on magnifies, and that's what we go after, even self-consciously. So forgive and forget.
So good. Oh my gosh. So I got 10 more questions. Kidding. Y'all have truly blessed my soul. The first panel has as well. Absolutely amazing. I know we didn't get to all the questions. I couldn't even see people's questions that they were posing because Teddy Riley Babyface internet right now. So we'll fix it for the next time. I would love to have you guys if you want on the second, if we have a second part of dating in these streets, because there's a lot of key things that both the men and the women dropped, and we might have to switch it up a little bit. But before we go, I always love to give my panelists, if they're having anything in the future, or if they're have any businesses, anything like that, I want to promote that. Hopefully this life won't stop by me doing this. It's still going, praise the Lord. I want to go ahead and Lakeisha, and then Natoya, if you could go ahead and just share a little bit about your businesses. I'm sharing it right now.
Awesome. So my husband and I, we host a marriage retreat every year here in Scottsdale, Arizona. This year is our 5th year. And we're so excited about celebrating 5 years of doing marriage retreats. And we've been doing marriage ministry for, I think, about 10 years. So if you are wanting a getaway with your bae, with your boo, then you don't want to miss celebrating with us. It's Encountering Grace is our theme. And as you can see, those are our wonderful speakers. It's an intimate time, absolutely wonderful weekend. So thank you.
You're welcome. Natoya?
Hi, yes, so I actually co-own Olivia Lane Wardrobe Stylist with my sister, and we are wardrobe stylists. We do fashion and personal styling, so and virtual styling as well. So we are local in Arizona, however, we do travel and we do offer virtual styling services, and this is for wardrobe.
Awesome. And then, of course, I'm going to go ahead and plug Last Supper Series Presents. As I shared before, it is a way to let your voice be heard. We're silence killers. Please follow us on Facebook, Last Supper Series Presents. You can, if you have topics that you'd love for us to talk about, you can email us at lastsupperseriespresents@gmail.com, and we'll be having our Instagram page up shortly. So again, thank you all for coming out. You were absolutely wonderful. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be blessed. And remember to always come being an adult. What is it, being an adult? Show up as an adult wherever you go, except to like Chuck E. Cheese or some type of sports arena or something like that. All right. Bye, guys. Thanks.